That's just a very short video on that. It's what we refer to as a reduction kit. Mine looks a little bit different than that one, but it's generally the same thing. Funny kind of story about that. You know, I mentioned how my dad was such a big part of this process as well, because he had to learn how to do the wrapping and help out with some of the supplemental care due to the limitations of insurance. He never could really figure out how to put that thing on. All the little straps and stuff on that, you know, they would just vex his mind trying to figure out how to overlap them properly and back and forth and all that. So I always had to put that thing on myself because it was confusing to him. But you know, when you get in all those straps all over the place, you know, it can be a little bit confusing. But it's a good tool, and it's something I still use fairly regularly. So that's one tool we use for long-term care. Another tool that is used for long-term care is something called compression garments. And these, generally what they look like, I kind of included these pictures in particular to show that there's a little bit of style you can put to them if you so wish. But generally they look like a sort of a stocking of some sort or an athletic sock, and you wear them similarly to the compression wraps. When you go through therapy, you wear these 24/7. The only time I take my garments off is if I'm getting in the shower or if I'm in bed. Otherwise, I always have these garments on. They can come in a variety of different colors. As you can see over here, they've got blue, they got red, they got black, they got sort of the sand, you know, skin tone kind of color. There's all sorts of different colors. There's different designs that you can get on it if you so choose. There's different styles in terms of the toes being wrapped, the toes being unwrapped. The one that I use, I don't do the toes because, like I mentioned before, I didn't like my toes being wrapped individually. I thought it was very uncomfortable. So I still don't really mess with the toes. I just have an open toe design on mine. And in my case, I wear 3 different garments all the time. I have one on each leg that goes up to the knee, and then I have one that goes all the way up to my groin. So similarly to how the wrapping was and that compression garment was, where it goes all the way up to the where it goes all the way up to the groin. That's what I have on all the time, and it's sort of a love-hate relationship with these things because they are the main thing that you need to do for long-term care. And it's I like to describe it when you do get to take them off, like if you're gonna get in the shower or if you're gonna go to bed. It's sort of like taking your shoes off after a long day at work. You know, you get home, you finally take your shoes off, you take your socks off, and you're like, you feel that sense of relief. You know, you feel good. You know, maybe even wiggle your toes into the carpet. You know, you're feeling real good. That's how it feels when you finally take these compression garments off. But that feeling doesn't last for very long. It lasts for about 30 minutes or 40 minutes. And then it starts to reverse. You start to already feel that excess liquid coming into your leg. You already start to feel the swelling returning. And you get a totally different type of uncomfortable feeling until you put your garments back on. So compression garments are sort of a love-hate relationship because you never really feel relief for long. You're always sort of in a general state of discomfort with these things. They just become a part of your life because you don't really have an option. And they have to be custom made and custom fit to your leg. So every year I have to go in and see now my new physical therapist up here, since I no longer can see James since I moved out of state. But I see my new therapist up here once a year, and they remeasure my whole leg all the way from my toes all the way up to my groin. And they remake the garment custom to my leg. And it's made in Germany and shipped over to the United States. So as you can imagine with this whole process, it's not cheap because they are custom made and they're made of a very specific material. So it's expensive to get them made and to get them shipped over. It's a bit of an involved process going through the measuring and everything. And then you kind of have this love-hate relationship with them anyway, but they're just a necessary part of your constant everyday life. And also kind of the sadness with all this is from the garments to the wraps to the appointments, as we already covered, insurance doesn't pay for this stuff. Insurance will not pay for these garments. Insurance doesn't really pay for all the wrapping materials, in my experience, and they'll only allow you a lot of times a certain amount of appointments to see a physical therapist, depending on how good your insurance is. For me, my insurance was pretty bad, so I couldn't see my therapist as much as they wanted to see me. But, you know, we still fought through all those hurdles, and we still got the treatment done, and we still did what we had to do. It was hard. It sucked. There were a lot of hurdles that had to be overcome, both by me and my family and my therapist, James. But, you know, I can't say enough about how great it was working with James and how he helped work through all of these problems with me, and helped me get the treatment and everything that I needed. But these are the realities. I fought multiple different insurance companies when I had different insurances to try to get them to cover the cost of these garments. I fought with one insurance company for several months, and in the end, they ended up reimbursing me like maybe 5% of the cost. It was like basically nothing. They finally wrote me a check for basically pittance. It's unfortunate, you know, but that's another reason why I want to make a video about this and try to spread more awareness, is because this stuff just doesn't get covered, you know, it just doesn't get covered. So it's rather unfortunate. But get that back into full screen so a little bit easier to see. So coming down to the final point of things, is, you know, is there a cure for lymphedema? Is maybe the question that's starting to creep into your mind. The answer is very simply no. There is no cure for lymphedema. Treatment only focuses on reducing the swelling and preventing more complications. That's why you have to wear those garments all the time, because this just isn't going to go away. If I leave these garments off, my leg will eventually go back to how that worst picture looked and how it was before. It will deteriorate all the way back down if I let it. So dealing with lymphedema and maintaining it is just a constant battle that never really goes away. So every year I have to go and see the therapist, get new garments made, get new garments ordered, and that's how it's probably going to be for the rest of my life. Barring some sort of technology breakthrough that changes this whole game, this is just how it's going to be for the rest of my life. I'll always wear these garments. I'll always have to get new garments. I'll always have to pay to get them replaced until insurance changes, and that's just going to be a constant thing. Some other forms of long-term, you know, some other sort of like care that can be done. There are some exercises you can do. Gentle contraction of the muscles in the arm or leg can help move excess fluid out of the swollen limb. So a good part of care for long-term of lymphedema is, you know, diet and exercise, activity. Swimming is great, as you can imagine. That's why I generally love to get in the pool in particular with lymphedema, because it just adds constant pressure to your whole leg. And then you're in the leg and you're swimming, you're moving, you're pumping those muscles. Pool is great exercise for lymphedema. There's the manual lymph drainage, which is the massage technique that we talked about earlier. Therapists trained in the massage-like technique use very light pressure to move trapped fluid in the swollen limb toward an area with working lymph vessels. People should avoid manual lymph drainage if they have a skin infection, blood clots, or active cancer in the limb. The compression bandages that we already covered, using low stretch bandages to wrap the entire leg or limb encourages lymph fluid to flow back towards the trunk of the body, which obviously be your like torso. Compression garments, which are what I wear every day. Close-fitting elastic sleeves or stockings can compress the arm or leg to encourage lymph fluid drainage. These garments often require a prescription to ensure that the proper amount of compression is used. You may need to be measured by a professional to ensure proper fit. As we already kind of covered here, I think for most people, this really isn't may require a prescription and may have to be measured by a professional. I'd say for most people, this is absolutely what you have to do. There are off-the-shelf compression garments that you might get lucky and may be good for you, but they probably still aren't going to work as well as the ones that are obviously measured to fit your leg exactly. And then there's also a sequential pneumatic compression, which is a sleeve worn over the affected arm or leg that connects to a pump that intermittently inflates the sleeve, putting pressure on the limb and moving lymph fluid away from the fingers or the toes. So this is just basically a sleeve that you'll put over the affected limb, and there's a pump that will just kind of try to massage and work that fluid out by constantly sort of, pushing on it and whatever. I have not gotten a chance so far to use one of these. I don't know how effective it is because the pumps cost money, and as we already covered, insurance doesn't pay for lymphedema treatment, so they do not pay for a pump either. So I've never gotten to try one of these. I don't know how effective it is. It's something that's been recommended by several of the therapists I've talked to, but prohibitive cost and no real coverage for that. But these are kind of the options that you have. Many of these we already covered both in video and text format, but this is kind of the whole process for treating lymphedema, both over the short term and the long term, because like I say, there is no cure for it. It is what it is. So that's sort of the PowerPoint presentation of it, but moving into something a little more positive. All of this sounds very bad, and it is kind of bad. I mean, it is bad. I did go through a lot. I did go through a lot of pain. I did go through a lot of issues, a lot of life struggles. I feel like I lost about 10 years of my life to this condition in particular. Even though I had it my whole life since I was born, there were 10 years in particular where I was sort of disabled. Where I couldn't do anything. Not even sort of disabled, actually disabled, where I couldn't do anything. I couldn't work. I couldn't wear shoes. I couldn't wear pants, as I said earlier. So I feel like I lost about 10 years of my life where I didn't do much. I mostly just sat on my computer and played games on the internet because that's all I physically could do. But I did eventually meet James, and I did eventually get the treatment that I needed, and there is a positive lining to all of this, because I try to be a very positive person. I try to look on things, glass half empty, whatever little saying you want to attribute to it. I try to look at things on the positive end. When I finally got to see James, even though I had been through physical therapist and compression therapy and all that stuff before I had seen him, I still had many questions that nobody could answer. It wasn't until I met James that I met somebody who was actually an expert on these things that could answer the questions I had. And one of the biggest questions that I had, because doctors had told me that all these problems, were my weight, and thus I thought it was my problem. I finally got a chance to ask somebody who knew what they were talking about, and it was one of the burning questions in my mind, which was, did I do this to myself? Did I mess up? Did I not exercise enough? Did I eat too much? Did I get so fat that I caused my own legs to have these problems? How did I get here? How did this happen? And that was the first time somebody finally was able to tell me definitively that no, you were born with this condition. You should have been diagnosed with it probably when you were a teenager, but information is so lacking, knowledge is so lacking on this particular condition that it got to this point that it never should have gotten to. And the opposite is what's much more likely to be true, which is all of these problems that you had because your condition was untreated made your weight a worse issue, which is absolutely what happened because, as we already covered, I was so unable to move and function as a normal person that I dramatically gained more weight. And this was a big moment for me mentally, because you go from thinking everything that's wrong in your life, all the pain you're dealing with, your weight issues, your legs being messed up, can't wear shoes, can't wear pants, all of this is your fault, to all of a sudden finding out it's not your fault, that you had a condition that was undiagnosed. And that flipped my brain around in a way that's hard to describe. You know, it all of a sudden went from being very negative on myself to being very positive and saying, hey, there's a light here. There's a path forward. This isn't all my fault. And even though I've lost basically 10 years of my life, unfortunately, to this condition getting to its worst stage and being untreated, I am now being given a path to get to a better place. And I now have this more positive mindset about that it's not all my fault. So things do begin to take a positive turn at this point. Not only do I meet my physical therapist, James, who actually treats my condition fully and has the knowledge and the skills to take everything to the next level, but because everything so dramatically improves with my condition, I'm now given back my sense of a life again, just by being able to get up and walk around and put on shoes and go outside and do things that normal people do. Since I got that treatment, I've lost over 100 pounds. You know, I've lost over 100 pounds. I still need to lose more weight, but, you know, automatically, just by being able to function as a normal person, I dropped significant weight. Being able to have this positive mindset about things and not be so down on myself, now I'm able to focus on the weight loss and everything else. And that's also how we get to where we are right now, with all of you being here in this channel watching this presentation. Without having gotten this treatment and seeing what was actually wrong with me, I wouldn't be here on Twitch right now. You know, being a Twitch streamer and getting a chance to do this stream was something I thought was never going to happen. It's something I wanted to do for a really, really long time, but I thought it was never going to happen. I had given up on ever having that kind of opportunity in my life. Because like I said, I thought I'm going to be dead by the time I'm 40, and I'm never going to be able to have a normal job again or a normal life. This is just how it is. Now I don't think that way. And really starting this Twitch stream about a year ago now, when I originally moved and kind of first started up the stream, it was very early stages kind of stuff. When I originally started, it was very intermittent. I didn't have a schedule. I was just kind of streaming randomly. But it was about October of last year when I first kind of started up the stream, and I first started experimenting with the idea of launching my channel and getting into this whole process. So things kind of come full circle, even in sort of the recent journey with this condition and everything that I've been through. So even though a lot of this early part of the video was a lot of negative and kind of the downsides of the condition, I do want to say that there is a big positive jump here at the end. We've lost weight. Our legs don't look like that picture anymore. We can wear pants, we can wear shoes, and here we are on Twitch now trying to regain our sense of independence and start a career. So you guys are all a big part of that. Whether you are a sub or you donate or you just lurk and hang out, you talk in the chat. If you don't talk in the chat, whether you're in the Discord or you're not in the Discord, doesn't really matter. You know, anything that you guys are doing that's a part of this process, you're a part of my journey trying to regain independence and become something of a normal person again after, like I say, probably about 10 plus years of not being able to do that. So I feel very blessed at the end of the day to be where I am now. I don't like to look at those 10 years where things were really bad, and everything that I lost, and sort of like self-pity about that. You know, it is what it is. You know, the past is what it is. I only want to try to look forward to the future, which is continuing to make wonderful friends here on this platform, continuing to hang out with everybody that I've already met, continuing to grow my channel, continuing to spread a positive message, and making this video and trying to help somebody else who may be in the same position as me. Because I have met several people since I got my therapy who also had these problems and didn't know what it was and what was wrong with them. And I think this is definitely more common than you might think, because I do see it around. Sometimes even just in public, I see somebody whose legs look abnormal like mine did, and I think they may have lymphedema, you know, and they don't even know it because they're not wearing garments, they're not going through therapy. And as we kind of covered a little bit earlier, it's also important to spread awareness on this because insurance companies and stuff need to also be influenced to give people treatment options, because it took a lot of work for me to get through treatment and to get everything that I needed, and a lot of that could have been significantly unburdened from me if my insurance actually did anything in this process, but they did not. Which leads me to the next kind of point and thing I do want to cover, is to highlight a little bit of positivity out there on that note, which is, since I moved over to another state, there is a organization that I've been put in touch with, which are trying to do something to plug those holes, which is a little organization called Ninjas Fighting Lymphedema, which is kind of a funny name, but they are an organization that is a nonprofit that works in obviously in the field of lymphedema, and they're trying to help people that are, financially unable to pay for treatment, unable to pay for garments, unable to pay for all the wraps and bandages and everything that's going on. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten to meet Amy Rivera, who started this organization. I haven't really gotten to communicate very much in the community of this, because when I moved up here a year ago, it was in the height of the COVID pandemic that we're still fighting. So a lot of these in-person events, talks, community outreach kind of things that they would normally be doing were all canceled due to the COVID. So I haven't gotten a chance to meet Amy and get involved in some of these activities and foundation works and stuff like that, which I hope to be able to do in the future. But they do a lot of positive spreading of information. They do fundraisers. They try to show things like, everyday people who have lymphedema still trying to, live a normal life. You can see this lady has a much more significantly swollen leg, more in line with what I dealt with, but she's still, trying to live a normal life and go to the gym and do these things that you need to do. They do wellness challenges to help encourage people to do the exercises and stuff that help, with the condition. They seem like a really great organization, and they have helped me pay for garments and stuff like that because I am on disability. I don't have a lot of income. I don't have I don't have very good insurance, as we've already covered, and they're just a good organization. So I did want to take the chance to highlight a good organization that is trying to also spread awareness and help out people that have the condition.